why we invited Sabine Stock, one of the executive board members of the O.B.B, to join us on stage. Sabine, super excited. Please. Great having you. Let's see, yeah, we have a mic for you. Can I give you a glass of water?
Yes, please.
Yes. Sorry, Alexander, that I didn't offer it to you. So Sabine, for the people who don't know you, can you maybe quickly explain who you are and what your role is within the O.B.B?
Of course. Before I start, maybe a quick response, of course, to Alexander, and a quick reflection. We are really very much impressed by what you do every day, keeping the system running, keeping the trains running, transporting goods and people. You're a close cooperation partner. We are still running our daily night train from Ukraine to Vienna. We will not stop it. But I think I speak for everybody in this room when I say we hope this senseless war will end soon. And we, as the European railway community, will be there to help you build up the system. You can count on us. So I'm working for O.B.B. As just said, a close cooperation partner of many of the railways in this room. I'm an executive board member of O.B.B Personenverkehr, the passenger business. In this role, I'm responsible, for example, for the long-distance network, the night trains, but also the local and regional transport. For strategy, and maybe one important thing, we'll be speaking about this later, about what we call O.B.B 360. That's our mobility as a service business, so ensuring the entire mobility chain for our passengers. For those of you who are not familiar with O.B.B, which is a pity, so I encourage you to all come to Austria. We are Austria's largest mobility provider with 4,800 trains per day and 2,400 buses. Actually, in many, many years, the leader in the EU rankings on quality and punctuality. So for all those of you who haven't visited Austria and traveled with one of our trains, please come.
Oh, we will. Thanks.
Absolutely.
I think one of the many reasons I was super excited to have you on stage, you have a background in experimental quantum physics. You have a background in consultancy at BCG. Since March, you started O.B.B. So I can imagine you bring loads of experience and other ways of thinking, but also like a fresh perspective. What are are you bringing things with you, and what are like your key observations in these first months at O.B.B?
I do bring things with me. Yeah. To be precise, my thesis was on rotating, on quantized. I need to think on that, on quantized vortices in rapidly rotating Bose-Einstein condensates. So for those of you who don't know anything about this, or particle entanglement for that matter, there was a Nobel Prize on this year, please look it up. It's fascinating. There's limited, of course, of what I can carry over from the topic of this, right? There is a lot in the way of how I look at problems and how I look at systems. In my 15 years at the Boston Consulting Group, I was mainly working in very system-relevant industries, so in energy generation, in energy transport, energy distribution, mobility, and these things. I do have a fascination, and I think also a deep background in looking at systems, understanding systems, on how things interconnect, and I think that's a very relevant part. Another relevant part, often forgotten, is 15 years Boston Consulting means 15 years in client service. And of course, this is the deep understanding of how a client wants to be treated is, of course, also something I do bring. It's been a very logical step for me. What was impressive and maybe even more than expected, people did warn me about O.B.B, yeah? Saying, you know, this is a state institution and it's all going to be terrible slow, and, you know, people are just going to work 9 to 5, if at all, right? And they are going to be retired at 52 or something. The power of innovation and fascination and the can-do mentality which I see in my teams is so outstanding I think that is the most impressive thing I can say about that new start.
Wow, such a nice thing to say also. What is also very clear, that you have also clear priorities. It felt for me that like the number one is sustainability. That's super, super important and generally important to you, maybe also through your background. And secondly, what I thought was very interesting, that you're emphasizing collaboration, partnerships, working together. And I think you mentioned briefly also in what you're just saying there. Are these indeed the things you're really focusing on and see a lot of value in what you're doing now?
Absolutely. I start with your last comment. Rail, trains, it's team sport, right? There's no way anybody can drive a train, no department, and in many, many cases, not even one company. So the big challenges we see as a company, and I'm sure many of you share this, I firmly believe that public transport is one of the key enablers in our fight against climate change. Still, the transport sector in Europe is still accountable for 25% of CO2 emissions. And for example, in cross-border cross-border transport of passengers, train accounts only for 8% of all travels. So this is something we need to get better at. Yeah? We need to make it more convenient, more flexible, even cheaper, and there we'll need to be talking about taxes, to encourage people to also do their cross-border travel by train. We as O.B.B, we invest a lot. We invest continuously, for example, in our night train network. We are buying new trains. We'll have a totally new generation of night trains on the tracks, hopefully with August. So this will be a totally new experience, and we hope that others will follow and that we'll really get this the preferred mode of transport. The second thing we're working on really intensively is flexibility and accessibility. Most people don't live directly next to a train station, and nearly nobody wants to go to a train station. What you actually want is to go to a mountain, to a lake, to a museum. You never want to go to a train station. So ensuring that the whole mobility chain from home, from work to wherever you want to go is CO2 free, is public, is shared, so that people actually don't even have the idea in the morning to use their own car. That's something we work on very intensively to ensure also this.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I was indeed surprised, just because of my ignorance. For me, O.B.B was a lot of night trains, but when I saw how many things you're doing in mobility as a service, last miles, buses, other things, that's super exciting how you're transforming there. What for you there is the most exciting area you're transforming to do more than beyond trains and standard modes of transportation?
I wouldn't say there's the one single most exciting one, but maybe again two things. One thing that is exciting is the response we currently get on this mobility as a service. So we start seeing a lot of communities wanting to work with us on the concept on how to make their region, their tourism region, their city, whatever, CO2 free. So we get a lot of response on this at the moment on saying let's work on this together. That actually, this client feedback and this interest does make me excited. Night trains, of course, also, right? I mean, I do get a lot of feedback on night trains. I do get a lot of bad feedback on night trains, but the feedback I get most often on our night jet is, you don't have enough. I can't book this thing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, it's full. And this is also something which actually does excite me, that we have found a product which is so interesting to people that at many points in time it's sold out.
Really nice. I think one last question, and I think I mentioned it in introduction there. You're about 261 days into your time here. What are like the key learnings you can share, apart from the things you mentioned, with the people in the room who are, I think, also very interested to hear what your observations are?
So one thing that's interesting really from when you come outside in is a certain paradoxon. I think many people can share the belief that public transport is a key enabler of fighting climate change. And while this is the case, it still is a means of transport that in many areas is its structural disadvantage. For example, just, I think you all know the example, but if you do a cross-border travel by plane, by flight, of course, there's no tax on the kerosene. Of course, this is not the case for the energy a train uses, even if it's CO2-free power. Another one, in many countries of Europe, you don't have to pay any street toll when traveling. For trains, of course, we do pay toll to drive on the tracks. And this is a very interesting paradoxon, which is there is at least a spoken belief in the importance of public transport, which we don't see in the European regulation. And I think that we really have a way to go.
Perfect. Sabine, thank you so much for this. Thank you. If you could sit in the, if you could sit in the next seat. Yeah. Give you this. Okay. Thanks again. For the next, one of the best dressed people in the room, a super inspiring professional here, Mr. Angelo Costa from Arriva. Please welcome us on stage. Welcome, sir. Great to have you. Okay, Angelo. Yeah. Good to have you here. For the people who don't know you, because you have been quite a while already within Arriva, I think 6.5 years within Arriva.
Yeah, 2015 was, so.
Quite a long time.
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit who you are and what you do for Arriva in Italy?
Well, I am now the CEO of Arriva Italy, one of the subsidiary of the Arriva Group. For people who don't know much about Arriva, Arriva is one of the leader public transport. I mean, we are in 13 countries and we operate a multimodal transport. So in different contexts, different type of contract situation and so on. So personally, I come from Genoa, historically one of the town famous for shipping and transport. So, I mean, I'm very keen on this sector. And after several experience, then 2015, I joined Arriva.
Yeah, and also, what I saw, you have a background in energy, you work for different organizations, kind of, and transport, you bring a lot of experience. It kind of feels that you maybe consciously or subconsciously collected all the building blocks you need to battle the challenge you have now, because there's a lot of things you can do, of course. Does it feel that way, that you have gathered this experience to now battle sustainability, getting people to the trains, getting people to buses, etc., etc.?
Yeah, well, from my experience, I mean, I got several, things that I bring with me. In this moment, I think that we have a special focus on operational excellence, which is crucial because, of course, we have to be every day more and more efficient, especially in a period of time where public funds appear to be declining. So it is necessary for us to be efficient. And so for doing this, from my background experience, I take a couple of insights. First of all, I always tell to my team that we need to have a more industrial approach, like, for example, logistic has. And when I refer to this term industrial approach, I mean the fact that when I joined, before COVID, in this sector, we were, let's say, quite static in the sense that, every year you have a timetable. You were quite, not so dynamic like an industry that is much more under pressure of competition and so research of efficiency, while effectively the COVID made this. And so this is one of the key points I try to bring to my team. A second aspect is the experience that I had with finance, thinking about projects. I always try to look at projects in a way that can be suitable for a project finance scheme. So legal structure is important, and also is important the clarity about future cash flow. We deal then with, you mentioned energy, and in the energy, it's important to find the right balance, the right option about, again, efficiency. We take a type of energy, we transform it, and we get another one. So at the end, the experience is that I am dealing with complexity, and the work is to find solutions.
Yeah. No, yes, yeah, very clear. No, we had some conversation beforehand. I think one of the things that struck me most is your positive view about. I really feel, and I think you mentioned that earlier, the can-do mentality you're seeing in the team. I felt it really strongly in you as well. But maybe most was the point you're making. I want to make public transport the preferred mode of travel, and mainly how you said it's so logical that's the most logical way. I don't know, almost not understanding why it's not widely accepted as the most preferred way of travel. Can you elaborate a bit on that, how you're feeling about that?
Yes, well, in this moment, I mean, in our strategy, there is a clear focus on sustainability. And I mean, sustainability somehow, I mean, you have a view that is a cost, is an effort. But what I think is that sustainability is also an opportunity in the way that we can look at the future as also future streams of revenues, in the sense that if we look at our sectors, we always think that we create value by moving people from a point A to a point B. Of course, this is the core part of our business, but we don't just do that. We create a value for our society which goes beyond that. The fact is that now what we do is that we deliver positive aspects for the society and are given for free in terms of safety, in terms of even clean air, in terms, so we make condition to have a better society, but we have not a financial recognition for that. So the challenge is in that direction. And if this is a common understanding, then it's clear that public transport is the preferred option, because we, in a way, is the most efficient from a pure financial point of view to get a cleaner air, but at the same time to have safer condition. So lots of positive aspects that for sure by improving and especially increasing public transport we can achieve for the interest of the society.
Yeah, I think a very good point. And what I like as well is that Arriva is well known to doing like experiments in different cities and then scaling them. Like we're talking about the e-buses and having that experiment and then scaling that to different cities as well.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit more how you're doing that and how that works?
Well, I think that one of the examples regarding these aspects is the example of the Glimbal, that is the Mobility as a Service app that was launched here in the Netherlands and is now developing quite fast. And this is a great opportunity because it's a project on which we have done now a set, and what we are working on is to make it scalable. And so the next country will be Italy, in which it will be launched. So there will be a unique product, service, and this service will be at European level, localized, because the focus, in my view, of mobility as a service is to be local, but at the same time, there is a standard that can be replicated. And so this is important because customers need to have brand identity, they want to recognize a level of service, and so this is the way we approach.
Very interesting. And if you look back at all these points, and I think you shared a lot of learnings and also how you're so passionate about sustainability, make it the preferred modes of transport as well. What are, from your experience now in Arriva Italy, the let's say 1, 2, 3 key takeaways you can share with the audience? Say, okay, these are like for me the most important things I would like to share with the audience on what I've learned.
Yeah, well, there are a couple of aspects that I like in the experience. First of all, we did in the last years a full reorganization of our presence in Italy. Before there were several companies. We merged them together, especially by doing a rebranding also of these companies. So there is a strong, on one hand, the perception of the customers about Arriva identity. There is also a strong perception of PTA that now they have in front of them a strong operator that can deliver solutions, can bring innovation, and so this is very, very important. The other aspects that I would like to mention is our experience we have in Italy about some areas where we operate, especially in the northeast, the Friuli-Venezia Giulia region, where we operate through a scheme of PPP, public-private partnership. So in these companies, we have together us as Arriva and some municipalities or public entities as shareholders, and we collaborate together. The companies, even in these schemes, are very efficient from a pure financial operational point of view, but on the other hand, there is a strong link with the local communities. There is a strong attention to their needs. And if you look at the ranking in Italy about public transport, those companies are at the top of the ranking. So it's really something on which I think we should elaborate more.
And do you, you mentioned the PPPs. Are there learnings from that? What works, what doesn't work when you're looking at these collaborations?
Well, I think that it works mainly these aspects of having together the interest. So there is a common interest. I think what is nice in this sector and makes me proud of is the fact that, okay, we have budgets, we have targets, we work for that, but not just that. I mean, my target is I want to improve the society around me, and this is done together with the political institutions that have also a common interest to make better future.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Angelo.
Thank you.
Please give a hand to Angelo Costa, please. If you could move to, yeah, sorry, you could move to, yeah. Perfect. Thanks. Finally, oh, he's already moved to stage. Kristian Kolind from VU, please join us on stage for the last section here. Kristian. Good to have you, sir. Please have a seat. Do you want a glass of water as well?
Yes, please.
Yes? I'll get you one. Sorry, Angelo, this one is for you. Here you are. So, Kristian, I think people are dying to know you're doing strategy, doing a lot of other things within VU. Who are you and what exactly are you doing within VU?
Yes, well, thank you. I'm Kristian Kolind. I am heading up a division that we call Strategy and IT, which is a good mixture of different things, which is the strategy formulation, the continuous improvement, the sustainability, and our IT division, and part of the executive committee in VU.
Oh, wow. Hey, and I think before we talk further, I think some people in the room might know there are some turbulent times at home. Can you talk a bit about what's happening in Norway currently?
Sure. I should perhaps first just introduce VU for those who don't know us. We are the largest land transport or ground transport operator in the Nordics, with buses and trains and cargo trains in Norway and Sweden. So, as you might know, Norway, who's not a member of the EU, has been very diligent in implementing all the EU rail directives, which means that Norway has had competition of the different rail packages for quite a while now. And last year, a new government was in place that went on a platform, or was elected on a platform to stop the competition, and has replaced that with a direct negotiation process with two state-owned companies, which is VU and then the airport express train Flytoget. So this is 80% of the rail activity in Norway that is now being negotiated, so it's obviously for us crucial times. And in addition to that, there are large or intense public discussions about the very structure of the Norwegian rail sector going on right now, including in the parliament. So you could say that our future is at stake right now. And then we can call that challenges, but then I'm humbled by the true challenges of Mr. Shevchenko, of course. But there are problems, and there are problems, you could say.
No, I think we're not competing on the biggest problems. I think we all have different challenges, and it was amazing for you sharing them. But also great to hear about this. But also, I think your positive approach, and I think that the can-do mentality you and the team have. Because if I look at what you guys are doing, a lot of components are digital. A lot of things are innovative. I think quite some people know about your app. I was not aware. I'm sorry, I'm not that often in Norway, but there are like so many different modalities in it. I think over 50 different taxi companies are in it. Can you explain a bit how that works, how does the ecosystem work, how are you doing these kind of things?
Sure. Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to extend the honor of the app to our head of digital sales channels, Kristian, who is sitting right here. Our app, well, we set out in 2017, I guess, on an ambitious strategy to build an app that really serves all modalities. So the app that we have right now allows you almost wherever you are in Norway and soon Sweden to buy both our train tickets, other train operators' tickets, other public municipalities' tickets, express buses, taxis, and so forth. And it's both search and book and buy. So you have everything in one app. And the taxi feature is a quite cool feature. I think at least that we have now 67 taxi companies. Kristian is nodding. So
cheating.
Yes.
Exactly. That's fine.
67 taxi companies in our app. So that means that you, with an Uber-like experience, can book and see your taxi coming towards you, and you get a fixed price for that taxi. And wherever you are in Norway, you can select from the local operators who are present in that city or town. So that makes it easier to pair taxi travels with all the other modalities that we offer.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what you also said, was briefly mentioning, is that you're way more actively moving into buses right now. Can you explain a bit what the strategy there is, what you're doing in that area?
Well, I mean, first of all, I would say that the buses makes up more than half of our employees and almost half of our revenue. So the bus business is a very important business to us. And obviously, there are a lot of things happening in the bus sector right now. I mean, you could generally say that there are three things that are moving quickly. It's the electrification, it's the automation, and it's the data development within buses. So buses being a data hub, and basically soon we'll know just everything about the bus, and we'll need to handle that data and bring it to play also with the PTAs that ask for a lot of information from those buses.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly, in your career you also worked with different startups within the context of the ecosystem there. One of them was involved in autonomous driving as well.
Right.
How do they relate to these different undertakings and what's happening with buses and the app and stuff like that? Is it the integrated part of everything?
You could say, well, a part of the strategy was to strengthen the last mile mobility, so that when you get to that station, how do you progress from there? And we made a number of different partnerships and investments. One of them was a company called Applied Autonomy, which is heavy on autonomous technology, or particularly the technology needed for a public transport operator to operate an autonomous bus fleet. So this is an important part of our strategy to prepare for the future, because we see autonomous bus solutions to start to appear. We expect them to appear in tenders. I guess we've already seen them appear in tenders, and it's a very important part of it makes, obviously it has the potential to reduce the average cost of a bus. So in that sense, it's an important long-term strategic driver, but it also has a lot of other features that makes it easier to have a bus at night. It makes it easier to have short route buses and so forth. And in addition, it's quite difficult to get hold of bus drivers these days. It's with low unemployment and with an aging, bus drivers get older and older. It really becomes a challenge if we don't have solutions for the future in this area.
I think it's very interesting how you're playing not only like the short game with everything you're doing in the app, but also the long game with what you're just explaining, just also anticipating on the fact that population getting older, etc., etc. I think you also mentioned that one of the challenges, and that might also be the reason why you're acting so actively now with the app and in the future with all these kind of things, is the fact that 4 in 5 cars currently sold in Norway are electrical vehicles. So I can imagine in the discussion about sustainability and preferred means of travel, that creates a whole new galaxy of challenges you have as a company. How does that work?
Yes, and I think it's still, I guess it's still a unique situation for Norway to have such a large share of cars. Well, now 4 out of 5 new cars are electric. I think it's in Oslo at least, it's 28% of the car stock that is electric. So this is moving quite fast, and it poses new challenges to the competition with public transport. And I could say, by the way, this is something I'll speak about in a bit more detail further later today. But obviously, with a very low marginal cost and with a more, you could say, it removes the bad conscience that one could have about a fossil fuel car. And that poses a big challenge in itself for public transport. And then it's multiplied by the post-pandemic travel patterns, where you, particularly if you travel maybe 2 or 3 times a week to the city, it's very tempting to take that electric car for those 2 or 3 times a week, rather than taking the train, particularly when we price at a monthly price ticket with the train. So it's all about lowering that barrier of and winning that competition, and that's something I'll speak to later today.
Yeah, very interesting. What I had not realized before is that there are so many different levels of complexities and challenges you're facing. It's now what you started out with the government challenges, obviously digitization with all the things you're doing, and then playing the long game with the AI, autonomous driving, and then the challenge of the electrical vehicles. Within this context, what are like the 3 key learnings you're taking from this? What helps you get through the day and do the amazing things you're doing? What are the things you could share with the audience how to cope with this?
No, I think it's I guess the most important learning is to never forget our role as state-owned companies as being an important part of a political reality, an important part about the of being a state. So we have a purpose that goes beyond just making money. We actually transport people every day, and it's a part. I think that realizing and adopting your strategy to that is a very important factor that has been coming to the surface even more in the last few years. Then obviously the ability to aim for the long while acting for the short run, I think we call it braking and accelerating at the same time, and that's a really tough balance. But I think I really think has been key to the success we're now having in the app. That we had the courage to bet and develop, even when we had the pandemic taking away the income and the political pressure to do it differently and so forth. So I think that braking and accelerating at the same time that's not advisable in car racing, but in this case very advisable.
Very, very nice summarization. Thank you so much, Kristian. Kristian Kolind. And now I am extra lucky, and I think we are extra lucky because we have an extra 25 minutes with these amazing guests now. I think 2 things I would love to discuss, and several things were addressed already in discussions we had. One is COVID and COVID recovery, and then at the end also, and I think each of you briefly touched upon that, how can we convince new groups of people, new generations to indeed see this as the preferred mode of travel. First, what stood out for me when talking to many of you in a room as well, I think many of us experienced COVID and COVID realities within our organizations differently. We had different challenges during COVID. We have different recovery paths. Can each of you maybe briefly sketch what happened during COVID within your organizations and how we're recovering now from the blow we got from COVID? Ladies first, of course.
And I think Austria really actually has a very interesting story. So our numbers in the trains went down by 90% during the lockdowns. I think that has been pretty equal all across Europe. What is super interesting in Austria, in the long distance travel, we are up 15 to 20% now as compared to 2019. And 2019 was an absolute record year. And for those of you who are in the train business, putting on a record year 20% plus people is an amazing challenge. I think that's one part is really the COVID recovery, so people want to travel again, but then also it's the energy prices, right? It's simply become more economic. And the third reason is in Austria we had in COVID the introduction of the Klima ticket, so one ticket for all public transport in Austria, which makes it much more flexible and accessible. And so this is at the moment our biggest challenge is to deal with this wonderful news that so many people want to travel in our trains.
Which is indeed kind of a luxury as well.
Wonderful. I have to be a bit more precise actually in the local and regional travel. We are still at 90% or something of 2019. I think that's the home office effect. But in the long distance travel, it's absolutely amazing.
Angelo, how has it been with you in Italy?
Well, the experience was, of course, dramatic at the beginning. We reached minus 67% of passengers. Then they had a certain recovery compared to 2019. We have not reached yet that level. We are probably still far, a bit like minus 20%. For us, what was important, and I think also has been very appreciated by our PTA, was the way we managed the crisis, especially for putting safety first, so safety for our drivers, for our workers, and then safety also for our passengers. This is something that has been really appreciated. And I think now, looking at the future, on one hand, because of this minus 20%, I think that's why I think we should find new sources of revenues for making additional revenues for the future. And on the other hand, we are working on several streams that, on one hand, as I mentioned at the beginning, operational excellence is crucial, is especially important, in my view, partnership with PTA, and also partnership with our players and especially suppliers, because we have to work on innovation. And one way of working on innovation is looking at strategic partnership. At the end, we want to deliver a service to our customers that is top class. That's the target that we have.
Of course, yeah. Kristian, would you Norway?
Yes, I think we have similar experiences as both of you will. Down 90% and up almost back to that normal level, and then with some new success, particularly in our commercial buses, where we see volumes are particularly higher than before the pandemic. I think what we have realized is the importance of new travel patterns, which are really kind of micro-segment oriented, in the sense that the distance you live from the city, the type of job you have, of course, has a lot to say as to how your travel patterns develop. And suddenly we start to have to pay attention to whole new socio-demographic factors in planning for future transport. For instance, obviously a nurse or a teacher or a police officer cannot have a home office, which has something to say, but then some types of work has different propensities than others, and then obviously the distance and the tariff system makes a lot of difference, right? I mean, if you have a 45-minute or 1-hour commute, the propensity to have a home office is much larger than a 15-20-minute commute, right? So that suddenly all sorts of different things happening, and we don't recognize anything from from past travel patterns. So I think it's super interesting to learn about how to play this new playing field.
That's interesting. I mean, it feels for me in talking to all of you like a few minutes ago, but also in general in the talks we had, is a lot of can-do mentality, like the positive spirit, excitement you were talking about. You were talking about can-do mentality. You also very positive about the future. Has it been like a moment of reflection for all of you, seeing, okay, this is happening now, it's challenging time, we see the sun on the horizon, we see brighter futures, but also what can we do better? How are you looking back at this period of time, and how are you looking forward to do even more now?
Well, I think certainly this has been a great moment for reflection. It's not only the pandemic; it's obviously also the war in Ukraine and the energy crisis and so forth. That forces us to think differently, forces us to think more commercially in terms of making sure that we can make money from less passengers in some cases. But it also forces us to challenge some of the traditional travel patterns. For instance, the monthly ticket is a good example. We have had, for the last 50 years, we have sold car tickets like a normal monthly ticket, assuming a normal industrial pattern of going to work every day. And obviously the pandemic has forced us to think differently about that. So again, credits to the team sitting down here, introducing a new product called Smart Price, which now makes the best out of a single ticket and a monthly ticket, so that the rebate increases with the amount of journeys that you have until you reach the level of a monthly ticket. So that reduces the barrier of the marginal cost of taking the train one day instead of the car, but still without having to commit for a whole month, and with the uncertainty of how much am I going to work at home the next month. We really see tangible effects of this of this pricing, of this new pricing scheme. And I think I think that probably would not have happened without the pandemic challenging our way of looking at things.
How is it for you, Sabine? Because you were talking about the plus 19% international. So there is like a shift or like different demands right now. Are you also seeing like new things? Are you looking at new ways of acting? How are you reflecting on it all?
We see mainly things enforced, and as I totally agree with what you say. There was this time when we needed to think about how to keep people in the trains, and even with a different pattern of mobility, right? As if you only go to the office twice a week, your ticketing needs to be different. I think what was important in the phase we did, there was a kind of wave, I think, when people thought about, is this the end of shared mobility, right? So maybe people want to go back to their car, it kind of feels more secure. So there is the security aspect, and we had to work on this, of course. For us, it was important to keep on track in the belief, and I personally, this is a belief I really very much have, I believe in the mega trend of shared economy. I think the new generations have much less interest in owning 2 tons of steel. And I think for us it was important to keep on track on this and say, we believe in shared mobility, we believe in first and last miles offers, even if it's not your own car. I think that was the most important thing for us, in believing the trend will last.
Angelo?
Well, I think that certainly this moment has been a moment of reflection. And I think especially on what I have done recently, I had the opportunity to meet all my senior managers team for the annual meeting. And the message was that I think the challenge is to combine, on one hand, the challenge from the headwinds, of course, I mean, energy, inflation, all the things we are facing, but on the other hand, also the positive if we look 1 meter beyond. I think that this is the point. If I look at the statistics, there are lots of funds that are available in this moment, funds that are focused on mobility sectors, because on one hand, there are a lot of new business models. Investors have identified more than 50 new business models that can be applied to these sectors. In addition, there is also a focus on Europe as an area where there is opportunity for startups in these sectors. So there is a long-term view which is crucial. And it is crucial also if we refer to the fact I mentioned before, the importance of sustainability as a potential source of revenues. I mean, in a recent study by EU, it has been valued that the transition from a diesel fleet to an electric fleet can have a positive impact on the society, which is around €8 per kilometer, which is an enormous amount compare even to what is recognized as a transport operator. So the challenge is that money that today we receive from Minister of Transport, tomorrow will have to come not only from them, but also from the Minister of Health, Minister of Environment. So that's the way, because we have to structurally modify the approach to this sector that has a value in the society, which is much more than the pure transport phase.
Interesting. I think all 3 of you are mentioning very profound insights. I love what you're mentioning about people don't want to own 2 tons of steel. Very interesting. Also, what you're saying, we have a wider impact on society there. We should do things with you. You're mentioning things as well. Is that the way to attract new groups of travelers? Is it really understanding the fact that people indeed want to avoid these 2 tons of steel? People indeed want less congestion, more health, the social aspect of public transport we're talking about. How do you go about attracting these new people?
Well,
all of you can answer. I'm just super curious to hear what you're saying.
Well, for example, one of the projects in which we are involved in this moment, and I think very interesting at Arriva, is a project regarding DRT solutions. I mean, especially for the experience of Italy, but certainly other countries, there are several remote areas in which we are involved. And the opportunity to launch this digitalized solution with, of course, a specialized partner on this. So through this collaboration, we are offering now to areas where in Italy there are Alps where there are less than 25 inhabitants for square kilometers, so really remote area. But by doing this, I think that we are making possible life in that areas, and we are talking a lot about climate change. Of course, zero emissions is important, but it's also important that area like this, there are still people that live there and makes possible life respecting the nature and contributing to the fact that there is a life even for other areas of the country, not just city life.
I think it's an interesting question as to how to attract new, also younger customers. And I think we often, particularly in the rail business, have this idea of young people thinking that rail is not something particularly cool. It's old-fashioned, and also all sorts of other tempting means of transport out there. But actually, I think that premise is wrong. I think actually our biggest fans appear often to be the young customers. I mean, we see that in our data as well, that the young ones are really the ones that are rooting for us and rooting for train transport as opposed to airplane transport and car transport. And I think that gives us a huge opportunity. And I mean, it's obviously I think young people have other demands as to the digital solutions, the customer service, but I think the basic needs of all customers still have to be met. The trains has to be punctual, and you need to trust them. But I think that we have a huge opportunity with this generation now to convince them to travel, not least by night trains instead of planes. And I think we have a great starting point for winning that battle.
I agree, and also on the younger generation, can I ask a question to the audience? Hands up if you've ever been an interrailer. Okay, you might like it. This year was an absolute record year for Interrail. There's never been that many tickets sold, right? And I think that's a very good proof of actually, no, it's not out, on how to attract passengers. I think what for us currently is important, it's not only about young people, that's important, but it's actually to get the transformation work. We need all generations, we need all groups. We need business travelers, we need older people, we need people with reduced mobility. So we do at the moment, and we keep this focus, we work a lot on quality. Sustainability is potentially a nice to have, if you were cold in your compartment, if the coffee machine didn't work, if you had a delay of 2 hours, right? That kind of things. I think we, as a train company, we need to keep getting right. And so that's actually, when you ask about my day business, a lot of my business is about innovation and attracting new groups and all that, but a lot of my day business is, of course, just keep the quality right, keep us punctual, keep us functioning, keep us available. And I think that's even more important with the number of passengers we want on our trains.
Mm. I guess perhaps the biggest challenge is the middle-aged men like us with a love affair with their cars. That's the biggest challenge, to convince them to actually convert to public transport.
And isn't the only way to do that? Because you were mentioning PPPs and other collaboration you're doing, startups, a lot of things you've been doing with startups yourselves. I think you started our 10-minute talk with systems thinking, thinking of different stakeholders as well. Is the only way to achieve this level of operational excellence, but also looking at new ways to more collaboration, more working together between different railways companies with different modalities, with digital solutions, with startups? Is that the only way forward then?
I think cooperation indeed is essential. It's, for example, the night trains have been mentioned a lot. All our night trains are operated by the train operator in the country where they operate. Yeah? That means if you come from Budapest and you go to Amsterdam, well, you have 4 railways companies operating the train. To keep the quality right, meaning even if you have a handover between the people running the train 3 times, still being punctual at the other end, right? That needs to mean the companies are not only operating this train, they need to own it. They need to feel it's my train too. I think that is an absolute essential element. Yeah.
So a lot of if you understand correctly, a lot of issues in the handovers between the different owners of organizations behind the different means of transport.
I wouldn't say there's many issues, but each of this can be an issue, right? So this is why.
Sorry, I wasn't making a pressing, but I can indeed imagine if you're not responsible for the whole journey, and our customers experience it in a like fragmented way, but people don't want to experience it that way.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Each border crossing in Europe is a change in operator, and often a change in material. Let's not forget this. When I spoke about the level playing field, that's also something we just need to get better on. You know, where can people operate? How are cross-border operations? What material can be used where? That's all something where the playing field in cross-border travel is just not equal between trains and flights.
Clear.
Yeah, I think, well, certainly, I mean, collaboration is crucial. It's also crucial, in my view, thinking about, for example, about the experience of mobility as a service, is to look at also local needs, starting from a specific area. So what we are trying to do with the project in Italy with Arriva is to start from the area of Trieste, enlarging to regional level, and then maybe going to multiple regional level, because in the past in Italy there were experiences where there were projects at national level starting from the whole country and were not so successful. And this is an example where effectively collaboration is important, because to develop a mobility as a service is necessary to put together different services. And so probably starting from a more focused area, enlarging it is a potential enabler of this.
Clear. By the way, we have like 6 minutes left. If there are questions from the audience, I think we have 2 microphones in the back of the room. Is that correct, Katrina? Think so? We'll arrange it. We'll go further. If you have questions, we'll let us know. I think no. Okay, we'll proceed. So we were talking about these COVID, the challenge we have, different challenges, look at different audiences, collaboration, yes, important, but it's super important to keep a close focus on customers and how they experience it. Are we, as public transport companies, doing enough to win these new people for public transport? Can we do more?
I mean, certainly, I think we can do more just to win over all sorts of, both young people and those older people, but those car love affairs. And I guess, I mean, I think we've spoken a little bit to it. You've mentioned it. I think the clue is to get all, to play on all strings of innovation. So both the innovation you have in-house, but certainly also making those partnerships and being open to offering, inviting in third parties. And I think in this room today and in this conference, we have plenty of suppliers that have innovative solutions that can bring us all forward. And then obviously we also need, as train companies, to be open to that innovation, and we need to have an innovative culture. And I think it's again, one of those important things is diversity in hiring and being deliberate about different types and backgrounds, and not least all ages. One thing is to get in young people, but it's just as important to get in people who have a good life experience and has a different road into those generations that we're also fighting to get into the trains, and make sure that we get people also with different life situations, and people that live in the cities and don't have a car. That's always inspiring to hear how they see the world.
Angelo, do you feel we could do more, or are we doing enough?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we can do more. I think, looking at probably young generation, what we try to do is, to think about that, not only as a passenger, but also as our employee, as our talent. So that's is important, and probably in doing this, we should reflect in which way we can involve them more. I think especially about our strategy regarding diversity and inclusion, which often, is perceived just as avoiding discrimination. In reality, is trying to achieve through the diversity, which is also diversity of generation, because clearly, the millennials is completely different from my approach, but by putting together this, and so making a real inclusion also of their point of view, I'm sure that we will get better insights also in making a better service, because we have from the internal source what is their point of view of a different generation, what their needs, their expectation. I'm quite sure that thinking on one end of the company, but also as a customer, there is a need in the young of feeling part of a community. So how to achieve that? It's also crucial for them. We think it's important sustainability, but for them it's even more than that. So it's a value that we have to declare, but on the other hand, we need to demonstrate in a concrete way. So I think this is the way in which we will attract young people as a customer, but also as a talent.
No.
I totally do agree. I'll be falling into the trap of repeating what has been said. So I'll just leave it there.
No, I just to play a new point, Angelo, I think the sustainability issue is really something that I think will transform our business as well, because again, I think most of us operate a number of diesel and fossil fuel buses and trains as well. And I think we'll see in not so many years' time that there will be increasing skepticism also towards those kinds of transport, just like the skepticism towards airplanes today. And I think we as transport companies have a huge responsibility in actually making that transition to electric buses and trains go as fast and smooth as possible.
And now I do need to say something. Yes, I think that's important. I think let's also not forget to communicate it right. I think what you said about we have so many assets, right, which we need to get better in telling the people we want in our teams and the people we want to travel. Sustainability is one, purpose is one. It's also about, for example, we can, there's a lot of work we can do on digital and digital ticketing, but then again, we are not so bad. Let's believe we can do it, and let's tell the world we can do it. Yeah? Let's put these promises out there and keep the promises. I think that's a thing we, at least as state-owned companies, don't do enough.
Yeah. The first danger sign of winning the young generations is when you said younger people, and the first thought you're, what do you mean younger? And I think that's the good danger sign of saying, okay, we constantly need to have to, we never forget to know what our customers are thinking, listen to our customers, and answer to their needs, and respect that we also are getting older by the day.
Awesome. Thanks all of you. I think it was super inspiring to hear the different cases. I really love the positive vibe and the can-do mentality you're all sharing. So Angelo, Sabine, Kristian, thank you so much for sharing your experience, and hope to see you soon again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Flame down.